Welcome home, Reid family. And this is home where faith and family meet. My name is Father Tim Donovan. I'm the parochial vicar here at St. Bonaventure Parish in Huntington Beach. My co-host Pam Hurwitz is not able to join us today. She is working hard at her parish in this Day of the Dead. This is kind of an interesting day that we get to share here as well. The commemoration of all the faithful souls departed. So welcome. We're so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, very happy to be here.
So we go back a couple years now, right?
Yeah, we do.
I mean, back to my early years of seminary. I think I met Tim when you were a youth minister at St. Anne's.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like after my, I think, second year of seminary. So we're working on like almost 7 or 8 years now, or 6
Was it
years,
that?
something like that.
Long? It was close. It would have been
because
at
it
least
was
5.
Maybe 5 years.
I think it was five-ish.
It feels like 7 or 8 though.
Sometimes, right? I know, right? You look back like, oh man, that was quite the thing.
Yeah, because that was it would have been 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
Probably,
It could have been
something
6.
like that.
Yeah.
Awesome, and it's been so beautiful to see
Yeah,
our
6 years
family
ago.
growing
Yeah,
too
you
and
knew us
changing.
pre-kids.
That's right.
Yeah.
Why you're not cooking and making?
Because I don't have to put my mouth right at the microphone. It just picks up our voices.
There's different kinds of microphones.
Yeah.
Your dad knows all about it, huh? May he teach you too, huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We'll get around to
Invite you to introduce yourselves and your kids here with us today. How exciting.
Yep. Well, I'm Tim. Also Tim. And
It's a good name.
It's a great name. Great saint. And we have Brantley here, who hopefully you won't hear too much of, but probably. He's exactly 9 months old today, sitting on the couch. And Hazel, do you want to say hello? Say hello.
Hazel, can you say hi?
Say hi. Oh, and
Oh,
she just
my
decided to get
God.
shy.
And then she could just bury herself in a little hug.
She's 2 years and like 3/4, 2 3/4.
How many years are you? This many?
Almost 3, right?
2.
Yeah.
You gotta take that
2
crayon
and
out of your hand to
3/4.
show
Part,
too.
part of finger, huh?
There you go.
Oh,
There it
there it is.
is.
You're 2 years old.
2 years old.
Nice.
Pushing 3. And then I'm Brooke, the mama. We talk about on the way here, we said, remember we're going to see Father Tim. And she said, Tim? So, well, yeah, there's Daddy Tim and Father Tim. So, like, we do our best to confuse, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about
That would be a hard
there's
distinction,
so many Tims.
huh?
And then her
That's-
grandpa is Tim, too. And
Oh,
so
my
it's
goodness.
just like, good grief, how many Tims?
God bless you. I know.
But there's only one Father Tim, right? For
Father
us.
Tim, Daddy Tim, and Grandpa Tim.
Mhm.
There's lots of
There's
Tims in
Uncle
this room,
Tim,
huh?
too.
Oh,
But
Yeah.
Tim's a good name, too.
It's a good
do you know what Tim
name.
means?
Oh,
Timothy.
honoring God or
Yeah. The one who honors God. So, hey, to have
That's
a
a good
family full
one.
of Tims, that's
yeah,
like
it's fantastic.
we're hopefully pointing in the right direction at least, you know?
That's
We do our
right.
best
Yeah.
to honor God in that way. It's so cool as well to be able to minister with you as well. Tim plays here at our parish. He plays piano for our 10:30 Mass, and hopefully maybe some more here soon. We'll see how that goes. And you're also the youth minister at St. Thomas More in Irvine, though, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm the full-time youth minister and director of confirmation at St. Thomas More in Irvine. We have a pretty big ministry, a lot of families, close to 300 teens total. So it's a big thing, but I'm also able to do music there as well. And so, yeah, but it all started at Little St. Anne's in Seal Beach, really maybe a year or so before we met, because Father Dewey was technically in charge
Right,
and didn't have a huge budget at the time. So we happened to be around just a couple blocks away, and Brooke and I volunteered because
Actually, Tim
I
volunteered us.
both.
Sounds
I
about
thought
right.
I would be like baking cookies and moving chairs around, and all of a sudden I was a catechist. Like, whoa, okay.
Oh, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
get
that was
signed up to
exactly
be.
7
I got
years
signed
ago.
up to be catechist again this year.
That's in Anne's?
No, at
Oh.
St. Thomas
She's
More.
I've got her just so we can spend a little time together. Because the program's pretty big, and we
It
do what we
is.
can to accommodate people. So we've like duplicated time. So we offer confirmation on 2 nights instead of just one for each group. So we meet Wednesdays and Thursdays, and give them the option of one of those 2 days, but every week, except for this week because of these wonderful feasts
Oh, that's right.
and Halloween. So it gave us a week off to spend some more time together and sit in the same pew for Mass, which we got to do last night at
That
St.
was
Anne's
awesome.
with Father Bob, who baptized this one.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we're just all over the place. I never expected to do this, to do ministry as a profession, but yeah, God has kind of just led the right people in my path, and you're definitely one of those,
For
Father
sure.
Tim. So thank you.
Glory to God.
We're just blessed to know each other. I don't get a chance to see or talk to Father Dewey very much, but he was a big part of that, and now he's pretty much pastor. He's the administrator, but that's kind of amazing how much can happen. Like
In a few
Seriously,
years.
because you knew him when he first became a priest.
Yeah.
So he was baby priest with
he
you.
had just
his
been
first
ordained,
daily mass at St. Anne's, I was the altar server, and so I remember he still had glasses. He was very nervous, and I've always felt kind of unworthy. I'm sort of getting over that now, doing it a few years, but I definitely just felt unworthy to be a servant, to be that close to the miracle of the Eucharist. But it was really humbling, and so I was an altar server for daily mass at St. Anne's, and that's how I met Father Dewey, and I love thinking about that his first daily mass, and I would just imagine like, wow, this has got to be weird. This has got to be a weird thing that you're doing. But we're the same age, and our personalities are somewhat similar, so that was a real gift.
Nice.
Or a curse, I don't know. Like I guess we'll have to figure that out now.
Some days ministry does feel like that. You're like, Lord, what did you get me into?
Yeah.
Are you sure this is it? And also, but I mean, the wife of a minister too. I mean, you
Yeah,
are equally a minister.
It's funny how often people in whatever church Tim is working at, they come up and they'll say like, thank you so much for giving Tim to us, and it doesn't really register that way all the time. Although there's nights where like there's life night and I'm like, could I just get someone else to help me get this kid to sleep or whatever, So there's moments, but I feel like it's such a blessing. I tell Tim all the time, like, we are literally taken care of by our church. Like, we are literally fed by the church. So we are giving as much as we can back, So it's a really beautiful thing to be able to work for the church. It's really special.
Beautiful. A lot of blessings from that too.
Oh, man,
Yeah.
big time, yeah.
A lot of challenges that come.
Yeah.
The blessings hopefully outweigh those, So,
Absolutely.
sometimes
For
you look at it, you're like,
Without a doubt.
man, Lord, what did you get me into? Right?
No,
But it
I
also
would say
comes through.
more often than not, it's really humbling because not everybody gets a chance to do this kind of thing. And our kids growing up in and around the church is really, a beautiful thing. Hazel now, I think, considers herself a teenager because we go every Sunday night. They have like a life night for the teenagers, the high school kids. And so after the mass, we go in and we'll hang out for an hour or so, But I mean, Hazel sits in the small groups and just listens to the kids talk about whatever the topic is, or, listens to her dad talk about, whatever the topic is. And I think she would genuinely miss not being a part of those nights. So it's pretty cool to have them grow up and be in and around the church, and she asks to go to church all the time. Are we going to church? Are we going to mass? Like, wow, that is pretty cool. That's pretty special.
She was too shy to do it here, but she's also like doing the sign of the cross,
She's doing
saying
the sign of the cross.
the blessing before meals, and all this kind of stuff that
Awesome.
that working with families in the church for so long and seeing teenagers, who a lot of times don't know those prayers and stuff, and it's just a little bit of affirmation to me that, like, as crazy as our lives are, and sometimes I feel very like, unholy or whatever.
We're losing the battle. There's days
We're
like
doing
that for sure.
something right. Like we don't get to eat meals together every day, which isn't
And yet,
great,
when we say the prayer before meal, she knows most of the words. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then she
She learned the
started
Hail Mary really
this
fast,
whole, Hail Mary. That's what I was going to say. She learned Hail Marys because she started running this scam with me at bedtime where, like, everything everything. She figured out that if she said, I have to go potty, obviously I'm going to let her get up to go potty, right? So then she just like put this whole scam together where it was like asking for one thing after another. And one of the things was she kept asking for songs. Well, I have like a 4-song repertoire, and it includes Auld Lang Syne, because she was a January baby, and I just started singing that to her when she was really little. Row, row, row your boat.
Nice.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, home on the range. And once I hit my max of those 4 songs, I didn't know what else to do. And she kept asking for songs, and it was like those nights where Tim was gone and we couldn't like tag team out, tap out of the ring. So I started by singing the Our Father, because at the most recent mass we had been at, it was sung. Nice. And she was real interested in that. So I sang Our Father. And then I just started saying Hail Marys to her. And so we were going through a lot of Hail Marys at night. And all of a sudden one night she just started saying them with me. And I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. That was worth it.
I think one of the really cool parts about our faith is so much of it is just, it's lived. And it's like osmosis, like, and just being around it. I mean, I even know like the Mass now, since I've said it so many times, there are parts of it I don't even have to look at the book anymore for and things. And I think that's for all of our lives too, right? Like any of those prayers, you do them enough and are modeled them enough by somebody, you love and look up to, then it really does stick. And I think that's the sad part about a lot of our families is that, and I experienced that as well, coming into a second grade classroom, and there's just not a lot of, there's not a lot of those prayers have been known, or because they haven't been modeled that, and what a great gift it is just to know that like, that's really how you form children, right? It's like to model it for them and to do it with them and at those beautiful times of the day and stuff,
For sure. Yeah. There is one thing though, with the sign of the cross, she literally mirrors me. So she crosses on the wrong side. And so then I've been too embarrassed to do it the wrong way so that she mirrors me and crosses herself the right way. And I'm like, I guess we'll just let her go. We'll let her do it the wrong way.
She's just an Eastern Catholic,
Yeah.
There you go. Because the
yeah.
Eastern Church ones, they go the other way. So
okay,
so
well maybe
legit,
yeah, okay, it's still legit.
It's still a cross. It just seems weird.
Man, she's doing it. It is, a little bit. For the Western Church,
right,
east to west instead of west to east.
Yeah. So if you see her doing the sign of the cross, people the wrong way, don't judge her.
Hey, she's doing it.
That's right.
Amen. Well, this week we are entering the end of our liturgical year. We're approaching the Christ the King feast, which is the last Sunday of November. And this Sunday of November, always we're approached by this kind of heavy readings, these end of the world, this doom and gloom type of stuff. Be ready, for the world will come to an end eventually. And there's a lot of elements of the gospel in the first reading today that can kind of be like a little bit overwhelming, right? Or a little bit kind of confusing for us as well. And I think in my own reflection on this gospel and in my own reflection just on the end of time and such, is it kind of hits on 2 levels for me. Like we do have this eschatological end, which is that big old word in the church for the end times, right? This second coming of Jesus that will come. Actually, probably better known as the glorious coming of Jesus, because his second coming is really all the time, right? He's here all the time in his word and in the Eucharist and in his presence among us and each other. So the second coming is a continual coming, but the glorious coming is the one where he'll come back in the end of the world and such. But I think it also calls to mind in my own life, like the end, like the finality of even our own personal lives, like, and kind of confronting that ourselves. And I think that when we can come to that kind of realization, there's this very beautiful quote that Benedict had, and he says, how we live, he says, how we die, how we approach death is also how we approach life. And I think when we reflect on our end, it can kind of be a scary thing, and we can not know when it's going to come, or, would our life look different if we knew the day we were going to die, and all this kind of different stuff. But I think the end of the liturgical year gives us an opportunity to ask ourselves those questions and look kind of deeper into what does it mean to die as a Christian, and what does it mean to ultimately to live as one as well. And so I invite you to kind of share what you reflected on a little bit there, and, kind of go back and forth if you have maybe even your own struggle with this reading, because I know these readings are tough, especially kind of Jesus when he uses these interesting kind of like heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will not. What do those things mean?
Yeah, for me it's difficult, and I being kind of in this profession, I do a lot more thinking and reading about this kind of stuff than I would otherwise. But this topic is always difficult for me, just in breaking it apart. Or I tell the teens all the time that I have a difficult time with faith in general, because my mind is always kind of trying to reason. It's one of the reasons that I love being Catholic, is because there's so much discussion. There's so much that has already been thought. There's really, if there's a question, it has been considered, and there have been thousands of people to write about it, over the course of whatever. So my questioning mind is well served, but this topic is really, it seems tough for me, I think, to boil it down to when you were just talking, Father. I was thinking about how interesting it is that I don't really fear death, and maybe I did. I think having kids, my dad has talked about this, that when he never had a fear of flying until he had kids, and then he did, because he felt there was this thing that was, it wasn't a conscious thing, but he could analyze it later and say, like, oh, I was afraid to leave my kids. I don't know. Like, I don't feel that way. Of course, I don't want to leave.
I'm like, wait a second.
I don't want to leave my family. It's not like I would like willfully, but I don't know. There's a piece to a concept of eternity.
Yes.
There's more of a grasp of eternity, and a realization that these children, I don't really have any power over them. So it's not like I'm responsible for doing my best to keep them safe and teach them as much as I can teach them, and give them whatever I can provide. But like, they're not mine.
They're God's children, and
it's so there's a biggerness to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you brought this up earlier about just us not clinging to things, and I don't really feel like I cling too much. So I'm feeling better about myself today.
Wow, I'm glad we had this talk.
I mean, in 5 minutes from now, I'll be like, we need more stuff. We don't have enough money. We're gonna, shoot, I need more. But yeah, maybe it's because, I don't know what, but definitely our faith and being, so involved with Scripture on a weekly basis, and just with the liturgy. I think that's a beautiful thing, the timelessness of that, and being tied into it, which I try to be creative about making clear, because so many of our families have a hard time with the Sunday obligation, and it's like, guys, you're missing out so much, like how we're not in an era of imposing fear and punishment. But you don't need to, because there's just so much beauty to
the invitation, like the last line, or what was it? Heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will not pass away. And I think depending on how much time we spend clinging to certain things, it will inform the rest of our lives. And so coming to weekly liturgy, coming to the experience of eternity touching earth every Sunday, and it touching you, like it does for you, from some of the preoccupations of clinging to earthly things.
Yeah.
And I think when our focus does come off the Lord and His Word and those kind of things, that's when we start to cling to earthly things as safety and comfort. And then when those start to get taken away, it's like these holes are left in us, right? It's kind of like, well, I can't live without that, or this relationship, or these kind of things. But like you said, in that purview of eternity, death kind of opens up as a gateway rather than as an end per se.
Yeah.
For sure, it does.
Which is a totally different experience, And I think that's my message to all when I celebrate funerals is like, like this is, as Christians, like this is not an end of sorts. It's like it says in there, this is a passage to a newness, of life. But still, there's that earthiness of us that clings to earth and even heaven in some ways, as a place, kind of that thing. But His Word will endure,
Yeah, we were having a conversation with Hazel in the car on the way to Mass last night, and, talking about the saints in heaven, and that we asked them to pray for us, and
Mommy,
this
what
Mass
is this?
that's his bottle that we don't want to show him or he'll start screaming for it. It's a secret. And so we were like, this is kind of like a little party for the saints up in heaven. And she's like, well, wait, how did they get to heaven? I'm like, well, heaven. And I feel like right now my job is to like bring everything down to as basic a level to understand. So we had this cute little exchange that was like, well, the saints, they're in heaven, it's way up in the sky. And she said, well, do they take an airplane to get to heaven? And I said, no, they don't need an airplane. They can go up to heaven on their own. And she said, do they have wings to get to heaven? And I was like, maybe they have wings. I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know.
Like eagles' wings?
And then Tim broke out in song, and no.
I will
but it is, for me, taking concepts like this and breaking it out. She has a little book of saints, and it's like a kid's book, but still some of them are like, the saints' lives are pretty crazy, right? And so we've been taking one saint, and it's just a one-page little, Cliff's Notes.
Written for kids. It's
yeah,
really
written
good,
for kids.
Yeah, really
but they still can be kind of gnarly, like little Saint Agnes, 13 years old, and I had to like change even a few of the words because she's like only almost 3. So a few things like she respected her body and all this, and I was like, God, made her beautiful, and she knew she was beautiful, so she only wanted to love God and Jesus, and it's like talking about in that time a mean man ruled the land, and then when we were talking about Saint Michael, and we were saying he was like in charge of all the angels, and then she didn't quite understand that, so I was like, well, he's like the boss of the good angels, and so then she kept saying like, so he's the boss.
Like he's the boss,
He's
and
the
these are
boss?
kind of things that I'm
And
like,
it's
wait,
like,
we gotta be
man,
careful
am I
here. We
messing
can't.
this
We're
up?
gonna like not really like, and then angels like what like
Yeah,
I don't,
so basically I just try not to mess them up too bad. And
heresy.
then
Yeah,
I figure,
avoid
That
we'll
is
hand them
part of
over
the
to someone
vocation
like
of-
Tim one
yeah.
day and they can clarify.
Hey, I think though that better than not at all,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
I
we're
think
talking about it at least.
sometimes the fear of parenthood is maybe not engaging the faith because we don't know quote unquote enough about it. I think it's better that she know that he's the prince of the angels and is the boss of them than not know about Saint Michael.
Yeah.
I think that's a worthy risk.
And the conversation ended with, if you're ever, scared of bad people around you, you can say, hey, St. Michael, help me here, And so we even Tim went through the whole prayer to St. Michael, and it was kind of like whoosh, right over the head. And so I was like, just say hey, St. Michael, help me out. Help me
I just
out
think
with
it's a
these
great
bad
prayer.
guys. It's a
We
great
pray at St.
prayer.
Bonaventure every.
That's right.
It's a
at the end of every
wonderful
Mass.
prayer, but your
It's tough. It's kinda
2 and 3/4-year-old daughter's eyes kind of glazed over, So just say, hey, St. Michael, help me out. Help me, save me, keep me safe, And that was pretty much how we ended the night last night. It was really cool. But yeah, so I feel like I'm bringing things down to such a basic level that sometimes it's hard for me to grasp or fully get the full scope of things because I'm bringing it down to a toddler's level. But then I got signed up by a wonderful man to teach confirmation, and so then I'm able to bring it back to kind of that and when you started actually with us at St. Anne's, I think I had been confirmed at that point, but I went through confirmation at the regular time, as a kid, 8th grade or whatever, and it was a horrible experience for me. I hated every minute of it because there was 4 of us, and we sat in the church, and I have memories that that they didn't even turn the lights on in the church, for saving electricity or something. I don't know, but it was kind of dark and gloomy and quiet, and so just trying to bring it back and bring the light back to, bless you, gee whiz, and so that's just, I try and bring it back to the joy of everything, including the end of our days here on earth, is the beautiful thing.
There is a certain comfort in the reality that the Father knows.
Oh yeah.
Only him, only he knows. And I think the children's responsibility is to always be prepared. And I think that's the ultimate invitation the church has for its people, is like the question of, are we prepared, or are we kind of pushing the preparedness off to later? And that's really what the end of the year is all about. Are we prepared really for the coming of Christ, which is Christmas is all about? Are we prepared to meet him, though, in our own finality and when we die? And that's always a hard thing to do, too, as well, because, there's been a lot of conjured images of what it looks like, at the end of our lives and when we meet the Lord and what he's going to exact of us and all of these things. And I don't know, there's days that I'm not ready. And I'm like, not today, Lord, please, not today, but maybe tomorrow. But we have to kind of remember that I think it's important that the Father knows, and it's who knows, And what's the Father's will? The Father's will is that we be saved. We don't have a God who's out to get us,
Right.
And I think sometimes maybe even if he didn't end it in the first generation of 40 years, this is God's generation. This is the generation that belongs to the Spirit. From the ascension to now, this is a Spirit time. And the will of the Spirit is the same as the will of the Father, is the same as the will of the Son. They're all the same will, is to save us. And I think God maybe could even be prolonging history to save us, to allow us another day to turn to him and say, I need you today, kind of a thing.
That's beautiful, yeah.
And that's always, I think, the invitation and opportunity. And that's why I love even the cyclic years of our cycle, this is the end times, but it's a preparation for a new beginning. Jesus is coming again. How many times do you have to celebrate Christmas before you get it? I think, but it's always, it's a preparation. God is preparing his people through this yearly cycle to eventually meet him in a second coming, whether that's at your, after you die or before you die or whenever. But that kind of preparedness and using it as an opportunity to say to yourself, whoa, maybe I'm not prepared, or whoa, thank you, God, for giving me this extra moment to be prepared and to bring, our families closer to you. And that piece, I don't know where that came from.
Thank you, though.
I think
the Spirit moves through you, Father.
Yeah, for sure.
Whew.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I love, I just want to remind all of our families, too, to invite them to ask themselves a question, what is the mission of my family?
Right.
And what is the mission of the Reid family?
There's a long answer to that, maybe, or just, I think it's clear. I think we live it out because our lives have been, as most families, and I work with a lot of families, and we're not that extreme or different or unique. Just life is stressful, and there's been a lot of change in our lives. We met during a time of moving. We were talking about traditions and stuff like that. So, and our mission kind of ties maybe into that, or makes me think of the fact that we just, I think, recognize that God brought us together.
Yeah.
And so our relationship, our family, is something bigger than we are individually, and we have our individual shortcomings, and we've dealt each other and walked into some mistakes, and some of them are financial, and that can be really stressful, and yet none of it really is worth clinging on to, I guess. Well, I know that. And so I think our mission is just for me, and maybe this is something we need to talk more about, specifically, I meet with enough families and talk about
this. Now's as good a time as any, I guess.
Everybody.
But is your mission not also the mission of the Father, of the Son, of the Spirit? Is to get each other to heaven.
Amen.
It really is. It is. I think about it, a lot, just preparing our kids, I think about a lot. So I guess in that way, I guess I haven't thought that way about us as much as the kids, and preparing them to be good little disciples, I guess I haven't thought about your journey to heaven as much, Tim.
Well, it's interesting. They say
these sweet little children. So that actually is something. I guess that I think that we probably do, though, in in like our core, the foundation, and just like with it dwells within us. So of course I think probably subconsciously we are worried about each other's journey and that, but on a day to day it's tough to like put it into words or really focus on it sometimes when
Well, and we hear this through marriage prep, and you're talking about it. Yes, the mission is to get each other to heaven. And for me, sometimes I don't know, it's a cynic in me or something. I'm like,
you're on your own.
What does that mean though? Like, okay, that sounds really sweet and stuff, but like life is nitty gritty. It can get rough. There's yelling sometimes, but
we get through the yelling. And we come back to our...
Then that's it. That's the answer. For me, now, as I'm thinking about it, like it is in the total self-giving. The sacrament of marriage, holy matrimony, is designed in a way that just sets it up perfectly. That I am no longer... I'm no longer an individual. And as much as I buck against that, I'm so grateful at the end of every day, because before I found you, God kind of brought us together, I was really lonely and really miserable, and I was able to I had the so-called freedom to do whatever I wanted, to find pleasure or interesting things, excitement, whatever, how I could, and I was so miserable. And in the self-giving, it's just easier because I'm human, so it's easier just to be like, I'd rather just sit in a room by myself for 2 days and not have to do anything for anybody.
You see, I was a little happier than that.
You said something super profound, Brooke, that was interesting. I don't know if you kind of caught it yourself when you were saying it, but just like...
I said something profound?
Well, both of you did.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of like met in the middle there. And I just want to identify it because it's really important. Both of you spoke about a covenant in just different ways. Right? Like the covenant on your end, Tim, was that like I have someone to share this life with, and your covenant was like this patient endurance of each other, right? Mm-hmm. And that is what covenant language is in the scriptures, is it not?
Yeah.
Like God has a relationship with the people to which, he wants to share his love, and they want to share it back and forth, but he also has this idea of this like patient endurance of them. Like how long did he endure the Israelites, right? And how long has he been enduring us?
Right.
And there's a certain, like, I think that is essentially the preparation for eternity, or the end, right? You guys are sharing in that covenant that God has with, his people in your marriage and then with your kids and things. Like, I'm going to continue to forgive you because I know what your end is.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to call you higher. I'm going to continue to challenge you deeper because I want the end for you, which is over there. And that right here is not enough for us.
And I think it's easy for, us and for others to get caught up in like, a random, disagreement or something, that to that effect, and not, you may feel like you have been wronged in some way, but to step up and be like, moving forward and even humbling yourself enough to say like, look, we're all human. It's a process. Like we're all working on ourselves every day. So let's just like move forward and stuff. There's the screaming we've been waiting for.
That was not a scream.
That's just
no, it wasn't. That was just like a amen, mama.
He's doing it.
But yeah, I mean, I think the patient endurance is like kind of the crux of the matter, really. Like you got to move on and humble yourself to say like, I can totally forgive and move on, or like I'm not gonna get bent out of shape over something little because it doesn't really matter, even though you still might get bent out of shape over it, but you have to just kind of tell yourself like, really, what is it in the grand scheme,
It's keeping that horizon of eternity on the table.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that's sort of the perspective, right? Like when you take those 3 steps back and you put it in as we're going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like this, like eternity has to always be in the equation for a Christian, for a Catholic. And without that, life gets really oppressive very quickly, and we start to cling to here, and we start to cling to the hurts of the world, even, or the hurts of each other, or the failures of what's around us, rather than that eternal word that God is asking us to cling to, which is always drawing us forward.
Yeah, and as we cling to more things here, it makes it harder for us to grasp that big picture. Like, what in the long run, it's not about stuff it's really about oh, they know you're here, Hazel. They're coming for you. No, wait, that's like a tornado
That is
siren.
once a month the fire department does this next door, so we'll see how much we can hear in the microphone.
Okay, but it is, when you can kind of like release and think about the bigger picture, it really is just about relationships and how you are treating others, how you work within relationships. It's just about, like, that's really the impression you leave, on the world, and all that really matters is the relationships and the people that you leave behind when you go. You continue to live on through them.
Amen. And too, isn't that what is the enduring piece of eternity? Mm-hmm. Is the relationships.
That's all it's all about, I think. Really, like, it's just how you're treating others and how you work with others and how you see others, and then how they treat you. Like, it's those relationships.
my ABC book.
You get a kick out of this.
She's talking about her ABC book is Perfectly Yourself by Matthew Kelly, which she carries around.
Book that's around the house, but no pic. She can't.
2 weeks ago, it was The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, she was carrying around the Great Gatsby.
She's carrying around The Great Gatsby. Now it's Perfectly
Yourself. It has words instead of
right.
pictures.
She goes, "Hey, look, there's ABCs in here."
Oh, okay.
ABC?
Do you want this ABC book?
Look, there's ABCs in there.
That's a great ABC book.
That is a great ABC book.
That one.
You can't rip any of the pages though.
It's okay. It's the end of the year. We're good.
Oh, jeez.
We're your brother.
That reminded me of a professor of systematic theology said a joke that always kind of stuck with me, and it took me a while to kind of.
Professor of systematic theology said a joke.
It sounds
that
like a joke.
was funny in itself.
No, but her joke was Dr. Susan Abraham. She teaches. Actually, I don't think she's at Loyola Marymount anymore. She went up to Berkeley. Anyway, she said her joke was, "If I get to heaven and my cat's not there, I'm leaving." And her point was that it's about relationship, and it could have been a person instead of a cat, I think, but whatever. But that, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, it is more about relationships and less about judgment, or I don't know. I don't want to get too far off on that, but it is like we see God through relationships, and
it's about preserving the relationships and working on them and that kind of thing. Clinging to the Lord, who is the Word.
Yeah,
the Word made flesh too. Well, awesome. We always like our families as well, to share one tradition or one thing you do as a family. It doesn't have to be kind of like a grand tradition, but maybe one thing you do ordinarily as a family that helps bring faith in the context of your home.
We a lot of times, Brantley screams, and Hazel, what do you do when he starts screaming? What do you start singing? Oh, she's not going to do it. It's too embarrassing. She starts singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star,
Nice.
and it works
one of
almost
Mom's
every
jams.
time. That is one of my jams. What's funny is she hasn't quite come to understand that her dad is a professional singer, and that she should really be asking for songs from him because he sings really beautiful songs.
I think it's really great because Brooke has a nice voice. You just don't like
hear
to
it.
sing.
You just don't hear that it's nice.
In front of other people. So singing, I mean, that's a tradition. I think we're very much ourselves at home. We do our best because I do work evenings a lot of the time. So now Tuesday evenings, we make a point that we sit down as a family, and have a meal. I love hearing from other families like at church, they generally come to St. Thomas More, where I lead a contemporary worship group at St. Thomas More, full of teenagers at the 5 o'clock mass there. And they're usually sitting like within eye range, but I get a lot of feedback that like, obviously, your kids go to mass all the time and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's nice to hear. And,
Yeah.
because they I guess, they're still kids, but they know how to behave. So mass, and then talking about it afterwards, we talk about it.
Yeah. I would say mass is about, honestly, our only real tradition. We're still such a young family, and having 2 babies under 3, Hazel turned 2, and a week and a half later we had Brantley. Like, which I said, God has a plan, but he also has a sense of humor.
Amen.
And so I think we're just still kind of trying to figure out what our traditions are, but the core of any tradition is the mass and the word. And so I think honestly, that's really our only actual tradition, which was, in all honesty, just reestablished because having Brantley and him being gone and me having to have both kids solo in mass was a bit daunting at the very beginning, of having both of them. So I thought about leaving them at home and coming back. No, I'm just totally kidding. You can edit that out. So yeah, I mean, it took a little while to reestablish that tradition, but now, we're back in it, and I know for sure that Hazel would miss if we were not at mass the same way I would. I don't know that Brantley would miss it right now, but soon he will miss it. But I feel a real void when I'm not there, and I felt that, that those first couple of months of Brantley, of him being so little and me not being able to take the kids.
Yeah. What an awesome tradition, though, to identify. I think you're the first family who has identified that as like an essential tradition,
Well, it's all we got.
But I mean...
but that's the best. Yeah,
there's
a
certain beauty in that, though. I mean, clinging to that. And I think even in relationship to the word today is clinging to this reality of the eternal, right? And that everything else will kind of flow from that, Beautiful. I love that.
Thanks, Father.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Shall we conclude with maybe a Hail Mary? Would that be cool?
Hazel,
Hazel,
this
Hazel, you want to come over and pray the Hail Mary with us?
We're going to pray together.
Come here.
And maybe we could sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, maybe?
Oh my gosh. Everyone can get a dose of my
Because that's what it spoke about in the first reading, right? The piece about the darting about,
That's right.
like the stars.
Right.
Man,
Hey,
Father Tim bringing
circle,
it back for us.
That's down.
Shall we pray? Especially let's
Yes.
pray for just our preparation, for Christmas.
Yes.
And because Mary prepared her life, to receive Jesus. And that's the same thing that she wants for us, You want to pray Hail Mary with each other?
Yeah.
Okay? The Father,
Father,
the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.